I literally started crying because there was times that I was missing. I could have been a statistic myself.
Several years ago, Jamie Smallboy was living on the streets of Vancouver's downtown east side, struggling with addiction and feeling disconnected from her culture. And then one day in 2011, things changed.
I was really hungover in an alley, and I heard drumming, and I sat up and thought I was hearing things, but it was loud. So I went and followed the drumming, and I was kind of afraid, like, what if I turn the corner and there's nothing there? And I turned the corner and there was just like a sea of women, Indigenous women, singing and drumming and praying. And there was, the medicines that were going. And I felt overwhelmed with like emotion. I didn't know that existed. I didn't know we as an Indigenous people were allowed to do stuff like that.
The singing and drumming Smallboy heard was the Women's Memorial March honoring murdered and missing Indigenous women. She explains hearing those drums started her on a different path forward.
It reminded me that I grew up with ceremony, that I grew up with culture. I grew up with POW, and all of that was so dormant for so long in my life. But that march, revitalized that or woke that up in me. And since that day, it started me on a healing journey and reconnecting myself with my culture.
Once she was in a better place in 2019, Smallboy founded a group called Red Sisters Gathering, with the purpose of sewing and giving away red ribbon skirts to the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women at the annual marches.
The color red is believed by our nation, and I believe many other nations, the color red is believed to be the only color that a spirit recognizes. So the hope was that by gifting these skirts to the families, the victims that have passed on will see the red, the parade of red, and they'll come and join their loved ones in that ceremonial march.
Every year, the annual Women's Memorial March takes place on February 14th, right here on Main and Hastings Streets in the downtown east side. For many community members, it's an opportunity to come together to grieve the loss of friends and family members, and to also remember those who are still missing.
It's ongoing genocide that's happening in Canada, and we're invisible. Indigenous people are invisible to the majority of society.
And thinking back to her days living rough, Smallboy says there are many things she would tell her younger self.
I wasn't born a Canadian, I was born Nahio, and I was born to this land. I'm Indigenous to this land. We belong to this land. This land doesn't belong to any of us. We belong to this land. We're connected to this land. And I would tell my younger self, stop trying to fit into a society that you don't belong to.
In Vancouver, Miranda Fatur, City News.